Hey, it's Random Code here, and today I'm gonna do a short video introducing debugging in IntelliJ, as the concept of debugging is actually one of the most important and useful if you work on any kind of larger project. But I have created a very small example, so it's a bit fake compared to like a real world example, but just to show us how it works. And the general concept of debugging in IntelliJ works by, on any line, here next to the line number, we can like kind of highlight a line. When we then highlight a line, and instead of just running the project normally on this green rectangle, click on the bug, so we debug our program. It would run as normal, but it would now stop at this position and tell us all information about the current state of the system at this point of time. So for example here, if I run the system, we go through a process of having a start input of 10, we do some adding to the number, and we end up with 17. In this case, for example, I have kind of forced an issue because we add 2 and we add 3, or at least we think so. So we should add 2 and 3 to 10, so it should be 15 and not 17. So using debugging, I could, for example, first take a look at this position. I would then click debug. We then get a bunch of information, and we get this debug panel. We can then see from this position of time, our input value is still 10. Our system controller, which is another class, .add2. And note on Windows, if I click Alt, I'm now able to kind of like interact with the items and see what they would do if they would continue to do whatever they're going to do. So for example, our system controller .add2 to end is going to return 12. So our input of 10 returns 12. That seems correct. And to then continue the state of the program, I will mainly use 3 features. There are more features, but the main 3 features I use is, normally I would just use the keyboard shortcuts, so that'd be F7, F8, and F9, where F7 is kind of like jump into a method, and it is what we see down here in the panel if we want to use like the GUI input. It would in this case then jump into the add2 method to see what's actually happening inside the method of this state. We can then also click F8, which kind of continues line by line in the current state. So if I just continue using F8, I can go through all the lines here. So let's do that for now. Or we can do F9, which kind of like resumes the program, so jump out of this debug line. And if we had multiple areas of debugging, F9 would then simply jump to the next debug area. But if we now go with F8, we go to the next line. We can now see that our input have a value of 12. So the first line we added 2, perfect. In our next system, we would then end up with a value of 17, which is obviously wrong as we have an input of 12. We should add 3, so it should be 15. To then jump into this, we can use F7. So then get into my system controller and look at my add3 method. And we can see here, for example, that add3 actually adds 5. But just for now, if we just continue, so I would click F8, I would continue, we see this, we go back to where we were before. If we continue again on F8, we can go to the last line and see that we print 17, which is the wrong answer. So now we understood from our debugging that if we go into add2 and look at our system controller, look at our add2 and our add3, that our add3 is wrong and should be changed from +5 to +3. And we can then debug once again, and maybe this time we just want to have a quick look at the add3. So we could add like a debug area on the method this time. It would then just allow us to using F8 to go ahead to go through all the lines in the method. So once again, we now jump directly to our add3. We can see in this case, our input is going to be 12 and our return is going to be 15 as expected. And if we just do anything at this point, F8, we get back here and we can kind of continue from this part of the program. Or we could do F9. We were at the end anyway, but it would then resume the program and we can see we get 15. And sometimes you might have like 10 layers inwards, so it might be too complicated to do like F7 to jump into something. So we might just do something like this, where we look at this state. At this state, our input is still 12. are still 10. We're adding 2, so it's going to be 12. And if I then resume the program, we would jump into like the next area, which would be in here. But I hope this showcase of a very small program where we're jumping around a bit allow us to get a better understanding of how this debug in a large system can be very, very useful. Also, for example, here, if we want to look at the add2 method, which could be a bit confusing, we have this adder, which just adds 1. We can then also look at different parts of a line like this, again using Alt. So I can Alt-click A, see its value is going to be 10. The adder add to A, add 1, so it's going to be 11. And when we do adder add to adder add, so adding 1 twice, it's going to be 12. So we could also use it to kind of like inspect a single line and get a better understanding of what's actually happening. But that is the very general concept of debugging. But if you enjoyed this quick showcase of a debugging session in IntelliJ, please leave a like and subscribe, and I wish you all a wonderful day.